I'd like to welcome Paul Squirrel, Director at the Network One. The Network One is the largest network of independent agencies worldwide. So due to unexpected travel restrictions, Paul and Patrick find themselves in rural England. Apparently they're in Paul's barn and they're using Paul's grandmother's green curtain as a green screen. So excuse the quality if it looks third world, because we're in the third world on this side. So as a result, we do apologize if there's any erratic sound or visual quality problems. And this is the joys of COVID-19. So over to you, Paul. There's a delay. I think there's a delay. Massive delay. Still me talking.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome from the UK. As Pepe said, we're actually in rural England, so I apologise if the picture breaks up a little bit. It's great to be with you here in pixel format, at least. My wife would be happy with that because she'd be finally able to turn me off. As Pepe said, my name is Paul Squirrel. I'm a director at the Network One. We are the world's largest independent agencies network and one of the largest networks across Africa. A big part of what we do is bring learnings and inspiration to the agencies that we work with. One person who has this and does this a lot for us is Mr. Patrick Collister. Patrick has a stellar CV, and I'm delighted today to welcome him here. He started his career in the agency world. He's worked his way up and become an executive creative director at Ogilvy and Mather in London. He was an ECD at E.H. Brahm and finished off at Google, running their Zoo, their creative lab there. Patrick today is a writer, a trainer, and also a publisher, which I'm sure he'll mention a little bit about as well. It gives me tremendous pleasure to welcome Patrick to the stage. So please give him a wonderful, warm, virtual welcome. And I have no idea how one does that. But Patrick, the floor is yours.
Well, hey! Hi there, movers and groovers in South Africa. I hope you can see me. I'm still looking at an image of the delightful Paul Squirrel there. I'm just going to move this sheet. So, thanks for the introduction, Paul. It is true. I am living proof that you really can teach an old dog to learn new tricks. I started in jingles and slogans, but today I am fully committed to clicks and likes. Boy, you don't need me to tell you that advertising has changed. Just 20 years ago, Seth Godin wrote the book Permission Marketing, and he posited the fact that then advertising was going to be, today, anticipated, personal, and relevant. But what has happened? It's become annoying. We're pursued around the interweb by remarketing. It has become crass with Kylie Jenner and Pepsi really getting themselves into a twist there. And then lastly, it's become spooky. You don't need me to talk about Cambridge Analytica and actually how very, very worried a lot of people are about the misuse of their data. And yet there's good news, guys. And the really, really good news is ROI. No, I don't mean that bollocks idea of return on investment. I'm talking about return on idea. And so what I'm going to be talking about for the next kind of 30 minutes is actually investing in fantastic marketing ideas in order to achieve success. You know why? Because it works. So Kraft decided in their wisdom to pull out of massive advertising spend. And what happened? Their business went down. So now Kraft is spending money. Advertising, I need to remind you, works. And I'm going to try and give you a little guide to how it can be made to work through what I call the 7 rules. Now, this is a guy called Mark Ritson. He's one of my heroes. He's actually a Brit, but he lives in Australia, and he's a marketing guru. And he wrote in one of his pieces that if he came across anyone talking about the new rules of marketing or the new rules of advertising, he would vomit. So right now, I think you can probably hear the idea of the sounds of retching from a garden in South Africa. But it's just a convenient way to chunk things. But before I talk about the new rules, I think it's probably interesting to talk about the old rules. Because the interesting thing is that in a lot of markets, the old rules are still being applied. So the first of the old rules is that as a marketer, you spend 90% of your budget on media and 10% on the content to put into that media. And yet today, there are examples of that being totally reversed. So BMWFilms.com 11 years ago spent 90% of their budget getting Hollywood A-list directors to make 9, 12-minute films. And that's how they grew market share by 12%. The most astonishing campaign. Similarly, here, what we have is Lady Gaga launching her own perfume Fame for Coty. The movie itself cost around $1.5 million. And that's the only video advertising they used. It led to $1.5 billion worth of sales around the world. So a complete reversal. In the old days, brands were not media owners. What you did is you went to other media owners and you placed your advertising there. And yet, here we take a look at the Red Bull website, and what you can see in the banner ad up there is an ad for Audi. Because what Red Bull have done through Red Bull Sports is that they have aggregated audiences who are really interesting to other advertisers. And actually now Red Bull Media is responsible for at least 30% of Red Bull's overall net profits. So here's a brand understanding the power of media ownership. In the old days, you used to build brands through advertisements. So I'm going to show you a classic advertisement.
Nothing much wrong there.
Nothing much wrong there.
Actually,
there is. Leaving aside blades, safety grills and limited settings, the design's hardly changed since 1890. Spinning blades chop the air, causing annoying buffeting. Turn it off, and you realise how unsettling it's been. Our solution uses airfoil technology. With no blades, it can
This
release
is a video
steady
that
stream
lasts
of
3
smooth
minutes.
air.
It has no sound to it, and it purports to be Dyson scientists at the end of a working day just messing around with the Dyson fan and a couple of balloons. And what is absolutely wonderful about this is that now suddenly you're reaching people who you may never have normally thought you were going to reach. So my son, for his 19th birthday, asked for one of these fans. I got to tell you, that is weird. But the most beautiful, if you like, form of advertising. Branded content is advertising without being an advertisement. Oh, those wonderful days, marketers, you were in control, and you don't need me to tell you that today you are not. They are. Marketers are in control. And if you do anything they don't like, my God, are they going to come back at you? And so you have to be aware of what is happening out there. Again, in the old days, we used to talk about marketing being 360 degrees, and it was the dear departed Robin Putter, who some of you may remember and love as much as I did, who said, hey, well, 360, come on, guys, we're at Ogilvy, 720, because we go round and round in circles. But today, we don't talk about 360, we talk about 365. We talk about 24/7, because it's about always-on marketing. And so those were the old rules. They haven't just changed. In many cases, what's happened is they've been completely reversed. So what are these new rules? Well, I'm going to rustle through them very, very quickly, but they're about purpose. What is brand purpose today, especially in the light of COVID and what's been happening subsequently to that? It's about brand, and the big dilemma now between, if you like, brand and direct, and whether brand advertising is as important as certainly a lot of pundits believe it is. We're going to talk about the value of data, and as a creative person, how I've learned to love data, because data gives you the insights that almost always lead to incredible ideas. Then I'm going to talk about personalisation, and personalisation, I guess, is the power of programmatic advertising to reach the right person at the right time in the right place, but really needing creativity in order to make that the right message. If you're going to deliver crap to people, it's crap, even if you're talking to them at the right time in the right place. So I'll skip through these. So be purposeful. Well, you all know Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. Dell tell you what they do is make cheap computers. Toshiba tell you how they make them, which is with Intel chips. And Steve Jobs said he made computers so that you creative people out there could change the world. Now, the thing about purpose is, without any shadow of doubt, it's profitable. So most of you will know this case study, Nike, and this is Colin Kaepernick and bending the knee. And when Nike ran this campaign a year ago, it created outrage, furor in North America. But the net result was it added $6 billion to their bottom line. It added $6 billion to actually in terms of their company worth because the share price went up. Now, here's the really interesting thing, because it was Colin Kaepernick himself who a few months later asked Nike what the hell they were doing trying to market a shoe with the Betsy Ross flag on the back. Now, the Betsy Ross flag commemorates the original 13 colonies of North America before they became the United States. Every one of those 13 colonies was active in slave trade. So here's Nike actually winning plaudits and appearing to make a stand for BLM and then shooting themselves in the foot. Is this or is this not woke? So for me, brand purpose has become incredibly important with some of the issues that are emerging from COVID. I just want as parenthesis here to remind you that in April last year, Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris burned. What was really interesting, Bernard Hinault, who is Bernard Hinault, was it Hero? Doesn't matter, he's the guy who runs LVMH. He donated 100 million euros within 24 hours. Within a week, 1 billion euros was donated to rebuilding this building. No one died. Now here, what we have is the murder of George Floyd, and so far the biggest single donation has been from Nike for a mere $40 million. There is a real discrepancy here between what brands genuinely care about and what they say they care about. And for me, purpose today is all about brands doing stuff. Don't tell me shit, do stuff, and prove to me that what you're doing actually does have real value. I mean, take a look at some of the communications that's emerged since COVID. Here in the UK, McDonald's began giving free coffees to health workers and saying thank you, whereas in North America, they thought it was enough in social media to just pull the two arches apart. And a lot of people in social media were saying this is not how you do it, just through empty symbols like that, which are cynical marketing ploys. So, my big question is, have any brands really found their purpose in COVID? And certainly a couple have begun to make extremely interesting noises. I think one of my favorite demonstrations of a brand standing up for ordinary people was this supermarket, Meny in Denmark. And at the very beginning of the coronavirus panic, when people were bulk buying, what they did is they sold sanitizer for 40 kroner, Danish kroner, a bottle. But if you wanted 2 bottles, the second bottle cost you 1,000 kroner. Isn't that fantastic? And so for me, here is a supermarket brand representing my interests through its advertising. The second of my homilies about the new rules of communication, be branded. Now, the IKEA have commissioned a couple of guys called Peter Field and Les Binet. Their first book was called The Long and the Short of It. And essentially, they're very worried that around the world, it's not just a UK or US phenomenon, that increasingly marketers have been putting all of their budgets into short-termism. In other words, looking for short-term results. And you can understand why, subsequent to the Lehman Brothers crash of 2009, 8-9, CFOs have really been getting on marketers' case. And so what's happened is that brands have been spending less money on brand advertising, which has this wonderful long tail. Now everything is short-term and measurable, and the results are advertising itself doesn't seem to be working. Now Adidas have actually completely reversed this, realizing, well, here we've got Dove. Dove, Canada put out this commercial that's gone, I hardly dare use the word viral, but it's certainly been shared a lot, because they're talking now about courage is beautiful. So Dove hasn't been embarrassed or backwards in making a statement. Other brands out there, I absolutely love IKEA. taking the mickey out of themselves and their really arcane furniture plans. But here in the middle, during COVID, when you've been living at home with your children, colouring sheets. So you can print these out and your kids can colour away gloriously. On the left, how IKEA are helping kids turn furniture into experiences. And so IKEA are out there talking to people, understanding what it's like to be in lockdown. This is a jigsaw puzzle from Heinz for Heinz soup. It's 420 pieces, every single one of them the same red. So it's understanding that Heinz ketchup takes time to come out of the bottle. They're creating something that takes time to do, but it's lovely and it's charming. And that is brand building in a time of difficulty. Data. For me, I could go on, honestly. If you gave me an hour just to talk about data, I could. Because for me, when I went to Google, I discovered that data gives you the insights that almost always lead to an idea. And then if you can innovate off the back of that idea, you've got the very model of modern brand communication. So I'll give you an example. Durex. One of my guys, Andrew Bent, we were working for Durex Italy on a project. And he just went to Google Trends, which any one of you could do out there, by the way, to see what people are interested in at the moment. And Andrew chose to see, do Italians search for sex? And it turns out they do, but actually predominantly in August. Now, as a creative person, I'm thinking I can do stuff with that. How can I turn Italians, on in February, in April? How can I make September August for them? And a creative idea. Honestly, all of these Italians, they might as well be British. Similarly, hair care. Jonathan came to me and he said he now had evidence to show that a woman's relationship with her hairdresser will outlast her marriage. Now, as a creative person, you can do stuff with that. But the glorious thing, and I'm going to talk about personalization in a moment, is that now you can use data to inform and to amend and improve your campaigns on the fly. So this was something we were doing at AdLib for Shell. We noticed that people were looking at these webisodes for the great travel hack in North America. And in the UK, they were really interested in the electric boat. And so I'm saying to Shell now, not only recut your commercials so there's more about the electric boat in it, but actually you should be doing much more about electric boats generally. Hey, and maybe, going back to Volkswagen, Herbie did more for Volkswagen than any ad ever did. So maybe those guys should be getting into making movies with Pixar's about Boaty McBoatface. The fourth of my 7 new rules is be personal, and this is personalization. Personalization at scale. This is using programmatic advertising to talk to the right people at the right time in the right place, and crucially in the right way. But the really weird thing about it, and why most of you out there hate online advertising as much as people do, is because 97% of it is not targeted. In other words, it's just kind of spray and pray. Really, in terms of digital consumption of digital advertising, one size does not fit all. That's the old broadcast method. And it seems such an incredible waste of digital opportunities to just create one spot and expect it to work across all channels and platforms, because it doesn't. So what do you do in order to be able to achieve effectiveness, which is the image on the right here? Well, you use targeting. And you use targeting by recognizing signals, because thanks to the fact that every single one of you has got a mobile phone in your pocket right now, you are both transmitting as well as receiving data. And so that data tells us about you. So I can now talk to you as signals. Weather is a great signal. So I can talk to you on a really cold day in Canada where the temperature is -12 and I'm Mark's Discounts outdoor store, and I can offer you a discount of -12 too. So here's a discount tied to the weather that specific day. So real time, and it's constantly changing. Pollution, pollen, actually flu, the coronavirus, all of this can be charted. Data can allow you to see where it's moving and when it's going to arrive at you. And so every single one of those signals gives you, as an advertiser, the opportunity to talk to people and be relevant. The fifth of my 7 new rules is be social. And honestly, I'm not being complicated about this. Being social is actually just being a human being. the word brand actually is just a Ponzi way of talking about anthropomorphism. You know, we apply human characteristics to inanimate objects like beer. But being social is behaving like people, like a normal human being. And this is a Belgian brand called Jupiler. And they know that over the COVID period and lockdown, a lot of people have missed out on their birthdays. So what you can do if you're in Belgium is you can go onto their website, you can register what your real birth date was, and now you can move it forward 6 months, and they will give you 10 free pints of beer on your birthday in your declared pub. So you can have your birthday despite COVID. Isn't that great? That is being nice. You know, listen and respond. This on the left is the marketing director for Honda, North America. And a guy called Dustin had a tattoo of the Honda logo put on his arm. And so what he did is he had a tattoo of Dustin put on his arm. And then he uploaded that to the Honda Facebook page. And it suddenly lit up. Chris made the Honda logo on his lawn. So they put Chris's name on their lawn. Christina, who is the digital marketing manager for Honda, responded to the girl who put the Honda logo on her toenails by putting Christina's name on hers. This is how you get 1 million Facebook friends. And in the time of COVID, this is what you do if you're a Finnish telco brand. You hand over all of your social media budget, all of your social media options, and you allow your customers to advertise in those spaces. Lastly, be involving. And honestly, I could talk forever about this too. Packaging is the last untapped frontier. Marketers, it is the medium you own. Why are so few of you doing anything with it? So again, I mean, this was something that we helped create for Pernod Ricard Malibu. With your mobile phone, just tap a bottle of Malibu and it opens up content instantly onto your phone. You don't have to download any apps or anything. It just does it automatically. Unfortunately, in this case, the content was crap. And this is one of the things, as a creative person, I talk about. Technology is not a substitute for anything. You still need the big, humongous, wonderful creative idea behind. So I was talking about the box as TV or the can. You know, QR codes allow you, through your mobile phone, to suddenly explore video. This picture here is Gulborn Foods. They're in Australia. From that pack, using your mobile phone, you can find out exactly where your fruit was grown. And then beyond that, they start offering tourist trips. So honestly, you know, fruit tourism. It's new, it's exciting. And I think more marketers should be doing it because technology allows us to do these amazing things. This is a print ad. And in the ink, there are enough electrolytes to establish a Bluetooth connection with your mobile phone. So you can sit there and play that ad like a bloody piano. Because it's an ad for the Chrysler 3000, the music is composed of noises of the car engine. I mean, isn't that absolutely fantastic? So the seventh of my homilies is be innovative. And so this is Lush soap. And in this time of coronavirus, they've created a soap that lasts for exactly 30 seconds, which is what the health people are telling us is the required period of time in order to make sure your hands are completely virus-free. So this is a brand looking at itself in what's happening out there and innovating with its product. And by the way, marketers, this is expected of you. I mean, 3 years ago when L'Oreal created Makeup Genius, they were really disappointed that only 250,000 young women around the world downloaded it. What it uses is the camera in your mobile phone. And so through the camera, you can look at your face and then you can apply different makeups and see if any of them suit you. Guys loved it. Women, on the other hand, loved it less because actually they know what suits them and what doesn't. But when they were doing, 6 months later, a brand tracking survey elsewhere, young women were saying, L'Oreal, Makeup Genius. I didn't download it because I don't need to, but this is a brand that understands me and my generation. It's doing cool things. So you need to learn to do cool things. Okay, so those are my 7 new rules. Is it possible, or is this just a creative director wagging his finger at you? Well, I've got to tell you, it is possible. And what I really wanted to do was to round up today, absolutely, because you had earlier that rock star marketer, Fernando Machado, talk. And he is one of the few marketers on this planet who actually is adhering to all of my 7 rules. God bless him. I don't think he knows about my rules, but What he is doing is marketing that he's so intelligent, that he's growing his brand and his business substantially. So the first thing that Burger King are doing is it's purposeful. So the old advertising proposition for Burger King was always have it your way, but now they're talking about be your way. And so in San Francisco, what they were doing on Gay Pride Day is selling burgers wrapped up in beautiful coloured paper, because actually it's still the same on the inside. So live your way. They had this fantastic campaign of anti-bullying, again in America. There was a video in which they showed guys ordering, and so candid camera, guys go into Burger King restaurants in North America, buy a Whopper, and then the server starts beating shit out of the burger, and then hands over this mashed up burger. 97% of all people complained that their burger had been bullied. But at the same time, only 20% of people complained about the fact that a young boy in the background in the restaurant was being bullied by other kids. And so making a real point there and standing up for them. And then really standing up against Trump's government that really was proposing at one stage to meter the price you pay for internet connections. And it was Burger King using how you buy and sell burgers in their stores and making a video about it that changed the potential legislation there. Even Michael Moore, a hater of marketers and of advertising, had to admit that Burger King had done something good. And even now, in the last week, by the way, talking about the environment, Burger King have just released this video. I mean, it turns out that when cows eat lemongrass, they fart 30% less. And so that actually is something that's good for the environment. And so they're feeding their cows lemongrass. And now they're telling us about it. The second of my things is brand communication. So very early on in this, when a lot of brands were just keeping stum, Burger King was out there and it was talking about being a patriot, and they were talking about the stay-at-home Whopper. And you don't need me to talk about the mouldy Whopper, the most talked about piece of advertising in the world at the moment. This is fantastic brand communication. And I'd love to see the numbers, but the 60-40 split that Peter Field and Les Binet have been talking about, I should imagine is the kind of split that Fernando Machado is looking for in most of his markets. Look after the brand and then make sure that you're always on content strategy and social media or wherever it might be, is just keeping people talking about you. Be insightful. This is data. This was Burger King's Super Bowl commercial. And the reason they ran this, it's an old piece of film made by Jan Lett, a Danish filmmaker. And what you see is just Andy Warhol eating a Whopper. That's all that happens. Why did they do that? Well, because when they looked at the data, it turns out that on Instagram, Andy Warhol is still more interesting than any contemporary actor in Hollywood. In fact, he's more interesting than 10 of the leading Hollywood actors put together. And so that's why they put it out there, knowing that young people are really, really interested in Andy Warhol, and so building brand loyalty with them. This was probably the most awarded piece of advertising last year. This was the Whopper Detour. But this is an incredibly personal piece of communication. In geofencing 6,000 McDonald's restaurants around North America, as you walked in, you were sent a personal message inviting you to buy a Whopper for just 1 cent. In other words, walk away from that particular McDonald's, and they even gave you a map to your nearest Burger King. For 1 cent, you could get a Whopper. You just had to download the app. And so they say $3 million incremental sales, despite the fact they were giving away burgers for just 1 cent. Be social. I love this to pieces. When Burger King launched in Belgium, they have a king there, King Philippe V of Belgium, and Burger King launched by inviting Belgians to vote for their favourite king. Was it the Burger King, or was it King Philippe? Well, it turned out that the King of Belgium, King Philippe, really got the hump about this. So what they did is they just removed the king. They said there's only room in this country for one king, and that's King Philippe. So they just launched as Burger. Isn't that funny? I mean, honestly, across social media, everybody was talking about it because it was just sweet-natured, but it was listening and it was responding. That's what we mean by being agile and being part of what's going on. Even though this is in Germany, in order to maintain social distancing, you can go to a number of Burger King outlets, but they then give you a paper crown or a cardboard crown to wear so that you can keep your distance from other people. Again, this is all part of, as I said, the always-on strategy. You know, the number of people tweeting about this, sharing it on Facebook is just fabulous. Be involving. So here, you can be an arsonist through your mobile phone. Just download the Burger King app in Argentina. You can now set fire to any McDonald's ad that you come across. This is such clever business, by the way, as well as being really good fun, because this is how you get people to download the app. And in North America alone, they reckon that buying burgers through apps is going to be worth in the region of $3 billion in the year ahead alone. So be innovative. I mean, apparently in Mexico City, traffic jams can last only up to 5 hours. So using Google Maps and GPS technology from your mobile phone, Burger King will now deliver a Whopper to you in a traffic jam. You know, the app, the GPS can locate exactly where you are. So, I mean, the thing about Burger King is that they're doing all of these 7 things, and they're doing them constantly. Not just with one agency, but with creative agencies around the world, different creative agencies. And the reason for that isn't because Fernando Machado likes turning up at conferences like yours and speaking, and he likes going to Cannes and drinking rosé, any of that shit. He does it because he works for some of the toughest hombres in business. He works for venture capitalists. And these guys have no interest in creativity at all. And that's why he does it, because every quarter his numbers are bloody fantastic. This is a man who believes in creativity because it has the power to drive businesses. So lastly, I'm not going to leave you all without the chance to put in an ad for myself. I publish a magazine called Directory. This is my email address. My latest issue of the magazine covers advertising published in the time of COVID. It is a really fascinating social history. Please email me and I'll send you a copy of the magazine free, with lots and lots of love to all of you lovely people out there in South Africa. Even though you did beat us in the Rugby World Cup final, I promised myself I wasn't going to mention that. The pain still lives with me. But on that note, I think I'm done. So over and out, and thank you so much for having us.